I'll get right to it. I, a 23-year-old female, and my friend, a 21-year-old female, went to our hostel in Poland and couldn't get the door to open even though we had the code. These two men who claimed they were also staying there offered to help us, but we couldn't get in until someone else came out of the building. At first, these guys were nice and helped us carry our luggage up the stairs to the hostel. Surprisingly, there was no one at the check-in desk, even though the owner specifically asked that we check in at this time. Because we already knew what room we were supposed to be in, the two guys helped show us to our room and we all made pleasant introductions. They were 32 and 33, if I remember correctly, and then we told them our age. They left us to get settled, but then we realized at this point that without being able to check in, we didn't have keys to enter the building or to even lock the door. Now, here's where things got weird. We were already feeling a bit sketched out by the situation, as it was clear that the hostel was just a converted apartment, but that's what you get for 10 zlotys a night, I guess. We then hear a brief knock on the door, and without waiting for a reply, these two dudes come back into our room to, I think, just to talk. The younger one of the two starts talking to us about going out that night and asking more questions about us, and at this point, my friend and I are exchanging looks. He mentions that he thinks I'm the one in charge because my friend looks young and then proceeded to stroke his hand down her cheek. But it gets better. He then reveals to us that he just did some cocaine and proceeded to offer us some, which we both adamantly declined. At this point, I just wanted him out of the room so we could have a chance to think, and this man did not want to leave. I finally backed him towards the door, but he wouldn't move his body so I could close it all the way, and he kept talking to us even though I was trying to gently shove him out. I finally got the door to close and then used my body to hold it shut. At this point, my friend had tried to call the owner multiple times to no avail, so we decided to book another hostel and leave. We waited until we heard the guys leave, and then we booked it out of there to our new hostel and are now in the process of getting a refund since we booked and paid the fee online. I never want to meet those two dudes again. I'm a solo traveler, so I've had some weird experiences, but the creepiest one was probably this one. I was backpacking in the Balkans and Southeast Europe, and as I wanted my trip to last long but I didn't have that much money, I had to sacrifice some comfort a lot of the times, like staying in hostels, eating cheap food, and taking questionable public transport. This was the reason I booked the midnight train in Greece from Thessaloniki to Athens. During my stay in Thessaloniki, I mainly stayed in the center and the Bay Area, which looked nice, just like any other big European city. However, the train station was in a different area. I had to check out from my hostel in the morning, so I spent the whole day out in the city and the afternoon in the sketchy area where the train station was because I wanted to stay close so I could get there in a reasonable time in the afternoon and spend the night there so I didn't have to walk around in that area at 11 p.m. That part of the city looked a lot less appealing. It was full of garbage, graffiti, homeless people, and really just sketchy, creepy people. The train station wasn't that much better. It had a semi-closed-in coffee shop in it, and I stayed there for as long as I could, but it closed at 8 p.m. While I was sitting in that coffee shop and looking down at my phone, I snapped my head around when I heard a loud noise. A guy dressed as a soldier rushed in the coffee shop and he was looking around as if he was searching for someone or something. The coffee shop was really small. It was just maybe 5 or 6 tables and there was only one other guest in there besides me. He saw me for sure, but didn't do anything. He went to the counter to order. He was speaking very loudly, even though it was relatively quiet in there. I found it weird, but I didn't think much of it, especially because he was speaking in Greek, which I didn't understand anyway. The coffee shop closed at 8 p.m., so I packed up my bags and I went outside. There were a lot of weird people loitering there. They didn't look like they were waiting for a train. I say this because I wanted to take a look on the tracks in advance so I'll know how to get to my train in time, and when I was doing that, a train came to the station and almost all of the people from the waiting room ran to the train, but they weren't getting on it or greeting anyone who was getting off. They were just walking up and down the track until the train set off. Also, they were all middle-aged men. There weren't any women or children among them. I went back to the waiting area and sat down on a bench. I was a bit nervous, so I plugged in my earphones and I was browsing something on my phone. However, I still wanted to be able to hear the things around me, so I wasn't listening to music or anything. Which I'm glad I wasn't, because not too long after I sat down, I heard someone saying next to me, "Hey, nice tattoos. Is it from Up?" I knew they said it to me because I have a tattoo from the movie Up on my forearm, so I pulled out my earphones and I looked next to me. There was the soldier from before sitting right next to me now. It was weird he started talking to me in English automatically, but I have a little Hungarian flag on my backpack which indicates I'm not Greek. I replied to his question and we started talking. The conversation at first was pretty normal. We were talking about tattoos and movies, and then we started talking about traveling. When I mentioned that I wanted to visit Macedonia on this trip, he got a little political and heated. He started talking about Greek politics and the relationship between Greece and Macedonia very angrily. Throughout that whole conversation after that, he was acting a bit weird. I can't explain why, but it looked like something was just off about him. At first, I was relieved that I was next to a soldier in this sketchy place, but after a while, I started to question if he really was a soldier or just pretending to be one, because he was very creepy. And he was constantly checking his bag, but just from the outside. It looked like there was a long object in there which could have been a gun. But if he really is a military person, then that might be normal, I guess. I don't know the Greek laws if they're allowed to carry their weapons off-duty or not, and carrying guns in the street is not normal in Europe at all, unlike it may be in the US. He asked me if I was traveling alone and for how long I planned to stay in Athens. I answered, honestly. I told him I was alone and that I didn't plan to stay for long in Athens as I was planning on catching a ferry from there. He then asked me if I'd like to stay in his place for free, but I declined. He asked this a few more times, but I said no every time. Just then, the speakers turned on and they announced that the train to Athens will be here soon, so we both got up and started to head to the tracks. He said he needs to get his luggage from the luggage storage, so we stopped there. It was right next to the steps to the train tracks. He took out a big, old, and heavy suitcase from the luggage storage. It looked like even he was suffering from its weight. Then he really loudly slammed the storage's metal doors. I don't know why he did this. I mean, it was unnecessarily loud. Everyone was now looking at us as the whole station heard it. We then started walking up the stairs, but he stopped and said he needed to use the restroom and asked me to wait for him there with his suitcase. He didn't even wait for my answer as he started to run back to the waiting room. It was really odd. Why would he trust a stranger with his luggage and just leave it with me? I stood there for a few minutes and was waiting for him to come back, but I started contemplating if I should just leave his suitcase there because I was afraid that I'd miss my train. I even had scary thoughts of what might be in the suitcase, like what if there was a bomb inside? Otherwise, why else would he leave his belongings with a random girl that he just met? The fact that he was acting really strange didn't help with it either. I waited a few minutes and then he showed up. He asked me once again if I wanted to stay in his place in Athens, but again I said no. We got up to the tracks and our train had just come in. He insisted on sitting next to each other, but I didn't want to sit next to him, so I said I have a seat reservation, which was true, and that I'm really tired and I should probably sleep through the night anyways. He said he'll ask the person working on the train if I can switch seats with a reservation. He left his luggage next to me once again and went to the nearest employee. This time, I didn't stay there. I got up to the train and I looked for my seat. Fortunately for me, there were a lot of people, so I blended in pretty easily. I took my seat, and a few minutes later, a normal-looking man sat next to me. Thankfully, the soldier didn't come looking for me, and I've never seen him since. Not even in the Athens train station. I know this story isn't too extreme, but it still bugs me to this day what his intentions might have been. Was he really a soldier and just a nice guy, but a bit weird? Did he have some kind of mental illness, or was he an actual crazy psychopath pretending to be a soldier to look more trustworthy? I'll never know. First off, I'm French, and my English sucks, so bear with me, but I wanted to share this experience that still gives me chills to this very day. It was December of 2018, and I had 2 jobs in the same shopping mall. A guy, maybe 20 or 30 years old, with long hair, was sitting on a bench next to the carousel and kept looking at me. He sat there all day, and I noticed that he was sometimes raising his phone and moved the phone in my direction as if he was taking pictures or filming me. I was 15, by the way, so he wasn't supposed to take pictures of young people. Plus, the way he looked at me was really weird, and I even caught him licking his lips while looking at me too. I felt really uncomfortable, but kept on working and didn't say anything. The next day, I was working my other job, which was another carousel job actually. It was seasonal in the same mall, and I didn't see this guy. But when I left this job and was waiting for my parents to come get me, I see that same guy, and now he sat next to me, like really close on this bench, and he asked for my number. I said no, and he looked down like he was disappointed and asked, "Are you working tomorrow?" I replied, "I don't know. Why's that?" "Because I like your body." He stood up and left. I was paralyzed, and the next day I told my coworker, Lionel, about what happened. I couldn't sleep that night and was really paranoid about everything around me. Then I saw the guy and I told Lionel to ask him to stop following me. He came back with a huge smile, saying, and I'm not kidding, he said, "It's okay, you two have a date now." Apparently, the guy told my coworker Lionel that he was a friend of mine and was messing with me. He said he was really shy and was playing this game so he could have the confidence to ask me out on a date. I was feeling so strange, as if I was going to fall or something. I became really dizzy. I went home early that afternoon and I told my parents what happened, and they told me to call them immediately if I see the guy again. When we were leaving, I swear I saw the guy with a hoodie under the rain looking at me and taking pictures of my car. The next day, I was with another coworker. Her name is Marie, and she's like a sister to me. And I saw the guy on the bench on the same carousel that I did yesterday. When I told her, she ran towards him and yelled some stuff that I couldn't really hear or understand, but I could see the guy's face, and it was priceless. She came back with a big smile, and the guy left. Apparently, she said that she knows where he lives, and if she saw him around for a second, she'd blow his brains out. Thankfully, thanks to Marie, I've never seen that guy again.